Treasurefam talks. Join the conversation. This week's highlighted historical missing treasure is in Kansas. Luther Woodford, pioneer and hermit, died 2 weeks ago at Christ Hospital of inflammation of the bowels. He was 71 years old and had lived in Shawnee County since 1856. His death was announced, and little was said about it because the man was not well known to the hospital authorities and physicians. He was buried in the cemetery at ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕𝕤 County, near where his brother lives upon a farm. His farm is southeast of the city, about 7 miles near the Denham schoolhouse. People who knew the man say that he must have had, when he died, at least $50,000 in money and bonds, and the sum may amount to $875,000. Somewhere in the earth on his farm, 7 miles east of Topeka, the enormous fortune is buried, and Luther Woodford took with him to the grave the secret. He left no clue behind to the hiding place of his fortune, and when pressed on his deathbed to reveal the secret, he said, "Oh, if I only had it all where I could set fire to it and burned it up. Do something to relieve me of this terrible pain. I ask nothing more." This is the nearest he came to telling where the money is buried. When he was in health, he never talked about his wealth, and if anyone tried to sound him on the subject, he would not answer. He kept his secret well in life, and when he died, it went out of existence with his life. Today, men are searching the place for money. They are prying up stones and digging here and there with pick and shovel in the hope of finding where the treasure is buried. Every corner of the old stone house has been searched. Every piece of clothing has been examined. Every suspicious place on the farm has been investigated, but the treasure has not been found. In his lifetime, Luther Woodford said that he did not want his relatives to get his money, and the indications are that his hope will be realized. 2 or 3 times a week, Woodford would leave the house just at dusk and go through the timber west of his house. This was when he was about to deposit money or take some from his store to use. If one could have watched him, then he would have seen him draw the precious box from its hiding place, unlock it, and carefully take out the money. It is known absolutely that Woodford had many thousands of dollars in gold which he hid about the premises in Topeka. In Dudley's bank, there is, to Woodford's credit, $1,100. He has had an account with the bank almost ever since he was in Kansas, and it has varied but little. Sometimes he would come into the bank and check out the entire amount, but in about 2 weeks he would return and again deposit the money. At one time, Woodford sold $1,500 worth of steers, but the bank account did not grow. Some of the neighbors have seen huge sums of gold in Woodford's possession. When Woodford died, probate Judge Wood appointed C.P. ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕 administrator of the estate. Mr. ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕 took charge and was given a bunch of keys which Woodford always carried. He went to the house but failed to find any clue on the treasure. He found a diary which had been kept by the man up to January 1st, and in this were notations showing that he had purchased bonds at different times but nothing else. Mr. ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕 thought that somewhere about the house there is a diagram showing where the money and bonds are buried, but if there is, it is well hidden. Administrator ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕 and 3 or 4 other men have been at the house several days. They have been searching the premises in the hope of finding the money Woodford was known to have. "I hope to find a diagram which will give us a clue," said Mr. ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕, "but unless we find that, I do not see how we can find anything. I know the money is to be found someplace, but no one on earth knows the whereabouts of that place. I shall continue the search." Mr. ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕 and the men have turned over several heavy stones near the house and have dug at various places on the farm. Administrator ℍ𝕠𝕠𝕕 said, in speaking of the protection of the place, "I know the law of trespass, and I will enforce it. While I consider it my duty to continue the search, the public had better satisfy themselves with the present information and keep off the premises." Burial of Luther Woodford, an early settler of the county. The funeral services of Luther Woodford were held in the M.E. Church at Sergeant Bluffs Wednesday afternoon. Reverend J.W.𝕍𝕠𝕠𝕠𝕠 conducted them. Mr. Woodford was one of the earliest settlers of Woodbury County. He came here in 1855, settling on the same farm near the town of Sergeant Bluffs, where full of years he passed peacefully away last Monday. Of him, his pastor says, he was a man of influence and a leader in the neighborhood. He accumulated a comfortable competence and gave liberally to the church and other benevolent objects. He had the highest estimate for truth and honesty, and was a grand example of these principles in his daily life. He was a kind and provident father and husband. No neighbor ever came to him in affliction or financial distress, but found a sympathetic heart and an open hand of relief. He had just passed his 84th birthday, having been born in Farmington, Connecticut, September 27, 1807. A wife with whom he has lived happily for 58 years, and 8 children are left. The children are C.K. Woodford, E.B. Woodford, F.E. Woodford, Mrs. Olive Coombs, and Mrs. Mary A. Dula of Sergeant Bluffs, Miss ℍ𝕠𝕚𝕝, P. Fox of Lorland, Ayou, Mrs. Nan Nye E. Bryan, wife Lake City, Ayou, and of Esterville, Ayou.
Gold fever got me on high, spinning my head with that look in my eye. Gold fever out of time, gonna get gold rich before I die. This is the promised land. By the end of the day, there'll be gold in my hand.
What you find, don't tip the scale. Don't you know Eden ain't for sale?
Been down every mine in this town before. Ain't nothing here but iron ore.